It is finally here. It is game week between Ohio State and Texas. The off season, we don't have to talk about random drama anymore or come up with things about sign stealing. We could talk about number one versus number two. We talked a lot about this Ohio State offense against this Texas defense. Let's flip it around here. We're going to start with this Ohio State defense going up against Arch Manning and this Texas offense. And Austin, I'll start with you again. What is your concern level for this D-line? We've talked about them constantly, and coming into camp, they were number one concern level for a lot of people. Are you still there?
I think you have to go into this game still thinking that is the most uncertain part of Ohio State's defense, or maybe even the entire team, I think, if we're being honest. But that is a reflection of the overall depth. And Larry Johnson has said they have enough bodies, and that's true. And Ohio State recruits at a high level, that's true. Larry Johnson doesn't give up on his guys. He can develop maybe at the end of a career for a Taiwan Malone or a Jason Moore. You're going to see them perform at a really high level. We're seeing Will Smith Jr. come along and backing up Caden McDonald. But at that top, it's not about can Caden McDonald, Edric Houston, Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, CJ Hicks, can those guys perform at a high level? I think we all know that they can. It is about the length of the season and then getting deep into a game against a Texas team that was in the college football playoff, obviously, and played Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl not too long ago. They play a physical brand of football, and does Ohio State have enough experience? Can they manufacture that throughout the end of training camp and go into a matchup against Texas and not just have to rely on the top 3-4 defensive ends or 60-plus snaps out of Edric Houston and Caden McDonald in the middle? It's that next wave where you look at it. It's not even so much, Adam, a question about beating Texas. It is about surviving the duration of the season. So I don't know if we'll get a definitive answer on Saturday at noon, but that is still the part of this roster where you look at it and say, is this at the level that Ohio State wants it to be? And we don't know. Okay, Dane, I think there is a little bit of mixed perception here as to what we expect on Saturday. Some people think that this Texas offense is going to come out high-flying, that Ohio State's offense might come out and, as Ryan Day said, let it fly, and it's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think this could be a clunky game. In your eyes, do you think this is going to be two good defenses and offenses trying to find their way, or the other way around?
I think if it does end up being more of a clunky game, that doesn't bode well for Ohio State. Oh. Because I think they have thrived, and if we just use last year as a example, when their offense is in the mode of we're going to try to score 1,000 points, they've been better. When they cut it loose, they've been better. And there's different players, new quarterback, I get all that, but I think if you name a starter, this is our guy, this is who we're going with, you play offense how you want to play offense. And I think when you get into that, we would do this, but maybe there's not experience, I don't think that'd be good for either side. But I think particularly with Ohio State, and obviously I've seen more Ohio State, that's the mindset I think this offense is most successful in. The one we are going to try to cut it loose, score as much as we can. We're not playing the conservative, we got a young team game.
Mm-hmm. So how do you, you've been there before, you've been a young guy, you were a child once in your life, you were a wide receiver at Ohio State. Wow, well done, well played.
Adam, what were you saying?
How do you handle the non-clunkiness? How do you handle going into this game and not feeling, there are a lot of new pieces on both sides of the ball. How does this game not go out there? You mentioned the unknowns before. How do the unknowns not become the game? How do you not let that get to you?
It probably has to start from the coaches, which is, usually don't think about it that much, but yes, I guess there's a difference between, is it going to be clunky? Is it going to be this type of game, or are things not going to go perfectly? Because they certainly won't. They're not going to go light it up like they did at Tennessee, maybe. But I think having the mindset that we're going back to it. We're not scared if we have a first quarter that things don't go that smoothly, that we're going to revert into this shell of okay, let's hand it here, pitch it. I just don't think that's the DNA that is now the Ohio State offense as it's grown over the past few years. So I think going back at it in-game, coaches saying, nope, we're still calling that. Players know what the shot plays are. Players know that was a risk. If your coaches are still calling it, that injects some confidence into you. So I think it's a commitment to it as much as anything of handling it. Yeah, it's not going to be perfect, but I wouldn't retreat into a safe game if things aren't perfect in that first quarter.
Okay. Going off of that, all we have heard about is Arch Manning, and how he's the number one pick. Although his grandpa says he's not coming back, but he said he didn't tell his grandpa that he was. He
said, "Knock it off, Grandpa."
Exactly. So, at the end of the day, the expectation for Arch Manning is sky high.
Right.
But Nicole, he's coming into the shoe. This is the biggest start of his entire career. What are your expectations? You've seen up close and personal this Ohio State defense. What do you think we're going to see from Arch Manning? And do you think that at the end of the day, we're going to look at this and say, wow, yeah, he was everything he was advertised?
I have always said since all the hype around Arch Manning started that he has not proved to me that he is the front runner for the Heisman right now.
Who is the front runner?
Well, I don't really have one right now.
I thought you were going to say Jeremiah Smith.
No. Honestly, I don't really have one right now because I need to see you out there during the season playing in these top matchups, showing it out there. Arch Manning hasn't done that for me yet, like what you were saying earlier. We haven't really seen him play a whole lot of football. The one concern I do have with Arch Manning that I think he is very good at is he's an incredibly mobile quarterback. Like last season, they would put Arch Manning in to move the chains. And my concern is that, is this defensive front going to be able to rattle Arch Manning? Because he, to a certain extent, he knows how to keep his composure. He's been in some of those situations before, obviously. So my concern is, are they going to rattle his cage? Like Austin said, the shoe in itself is going to be rocking. It's going to be loud. It's a chaotic atmosphere for a young quarterback. But I think Arch Manning has some weapons that people have talked about all season. Yes, he can sling the rock. He can also use his legs and move the chains. I think that also, I'm not concerned about the secondary for Ohio State. I'm concerned with, is this defensive front going to be able to rattle his cage?
I think what's important to keep in mind, Nicole, not just for you and Adam, but when we talk about the defensive
for everybody
line, for being a concern or depth, Ohio State does not have to pressure with the defensive front alone.
Yeah.
So if I say that is still the biggest question mark for Ohio State, why do I still feel so strongly that the Buckeyes are going to rattle Arch Manning, that the situation lends itself to an Ohio State victory? They can use Arvell Reese to do that. They can use Sonny Styles to do that. They're going to disguise coverage with Davis Igbenogson, Jermaine Matthews, and the best defensive player in America in Caleb Downs. It will not be solely reliant on a traditional four-man front winning matchups against, by the way, a Texas offensive line that has to replace four starters, and one of them got hurt during training camp. So that matchup may well be just even between those guys. So then it becomes on the margins. Is Arch Manning able to, be an expert with his accuracy and make the correct reads and decipher what Matt Patricia is going to do? Does Davis Igbenogson cut down enough on those penalties that that becomes a non-factor? That Jermaine Matthews, is this a coming-out party for him in the secondary? Is Caleb Downs, where is he going to line up from play to play? All of those things are separate. The defensive line is part of that. But when we've maybe been hyper-focused on that in Columbus, that's sort of what we do. But if you look at the big picture and the seven guys behind that, Dane, that's where the next challenge really becomes, because this is the best secondary in America, in my opinion, at Ohio State. And that linebacker group with Peyton Pierce, Arvell Reese, and Sonny Styles is going to be dynamic.
You took the next question out of my mouth, which is, do you think we're going to see all of that schemed up in game one here? And I'll go to you, Dane, new defensive coordinator. The talent is there for this defense. They know it at every position. The linebacker room is unbelievably talented. Think back to where we were just a few years ago when that was a question mark. But Matt Patricia, this is his first game. He's taking over. He's just trying to implement his new system with these guys. I think back to Jim Knowles, third down. It was Lorenzo Styles running over the middle, 60-yard play because Jim Knowles blitzed. That is the problem you can get into in the first big game trying to implement your system. How much do you talked about on offense, let it fly. How much on defense do you want to see Matt Patricia go out there and just let go of the leash?
Yeah. I like it on both sides.
Yeah.
I do. Because, whether we like it or not, these type of games in our current world of college football aren't life or death. I want to see them go and try to win it, not try to not lose it because we are young or this is our first time with, the real bullets are flying here. I think for every one of those scenarios where you're like, oh yeah, we blitzed and we got burned, you could look at Oregon last year. Okay, we didn't necessarily blitz and got burned. There's ways you can play too conservative, bad. Too aggressive, bad. Sure, I would, with a new team and wanting to instill that, you're setting the tone for the season here, I'd rather have to back it off than just go into this game and kind of be we're implementing. Like, it's a 1 versus 2 matchup. Implement last week. I would pull the cord this week.
When you play college football in Madden, are you running 4 verts every play and all out
I'm
blitz?
a DeBomb guy, yeah.
Okay.
NFL blitz. It keeps the energy up.
Mm-hmm.
It helps my team believe in me more that I'm going to make the decision necessary. So yes.
Players know the shots.
The players know the shots. I love it.
I will say this is on the other side of the ball, but going off your offensive let it fly, I would love to see first play of the game, Julian Sayin. Boo! Bomb. Let's start off strong.
Speaking my language.
That's what I want to see. I want
all.
to see that. Think about the statement that would be made with something like that.
They dialed up a tunnel screen for him last year, and that very nearly broke for a touchdown too.
You don't have to catch it.
Okay, here's what you do, but just have him throw it all. We just want to see the arm strength.
Like just really intimidate
I'm
them
learning
with that.
more about myself.
Drop back, throw it just as far as you can, out the back of the end zone. But I just want to get the stadium fired up.
Yes.
I can't believe Dane played for Jim Tressel. Like,
I know it. He's like, let it fly.
I've got all these pent up risks I want to take. I'll say anything. Ask me a question. I'll give you a real answer. Do it.
I'm learning more about myself here because you just said that. And I thought, oh no, please no. What if it gets intercepted? And that's everything Dane does.
Well, of course, but like he's saying, you can't play scared.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm having an influence
You
here.
can on the Buckeye offense
Make terrible
play
coaching decisions.
Let's not be not educated about it, right?
No, but you can play a little, in my opinion, a little more aggressive on offense because of this Buckeye defense. I think this year this Ohio State defense is 1,000% going to be the shining star of this team, and that's saying a lot considering the best player in the country is on offense. But Nicole, I'll ask you, the shining star of the Silver Bullets is Caleb Downs. How much do you think we get to open our eyes and see him closer to the line of scrimmage, in the nickel, playing different roles as opposed to just kind of being out there as the safety?
Well, that's why I think last year he was just kind of out there, and obviously he was a difference maker, but he kind of, I don't want to say lost in the weeds, but all eyes weren't always on him. Obviously he had interceptions and those big time plays where everybody was like, oh my gosh, it's Caleb Downs. But this year, he really deserves the credit and he deserves to kind of play to his strengths. And that's been Matt Patricia's thing ever since he got to Columbus. He said, my players, I'm going to coach them to their strengths and they're going to play to their strengths. And Caleb Downs is a great example of that. He put him all over the field. Let him go. Like, I like a lot of my hand motions today.
Yeah,
he's going to be cooking, okay? Yeah. No, but seriously, I know Caleb Downs and Matt Patricia have a great relationship. I mean, every time you see them come off the practice field, they're talking to each other. They're whatever they're saying. I obviously am not listening, but whatever they're saying to each other.
What kind of reporter are you?
Well, what do you want me to go like this? What are you guys saying?
A little eavesdropping.
That jumps again to my next thing, and Austin, I'll finish with this. And I feel like I've said his name 800 times this offseason, and I'm just so giddy to see how it plays out.
I already know what you're going to say.
CJ Hicks
Yep, there it is.
always with Matt Patricia.
He is.
We're no longer talking about the grand scope of things. We're talking about one game. We're talking about the biggest home opener in Ohio State history. How much do I get to watch CJ Hicks play football? You're not defensive coordinator. I want you to tell me, break my heart right now, Austin. Do it.
There are going to be games where CJ Hicks is featured prominently. Is this going to be one of them? I don't know. We get to Saturday and find out that answer, Adam, because I do believe that the way we have to think about defense and depth charts with this new era with Matt Patricia is going to be different. It is going to look different from game to game and week to week and probably even drive to drive. And that sounds like I'm avoiding your question, and I promise you I'm not.
Well done.
Because if Texas wants to go
out,
out,
to just break your heart. Nice.
If Texas is going to play in like heavier personnel and try to run the football, that's probably not the game that lends itself to CJ Hicks versus playing, Bo Atkinson with his size or Caden Curry, and Kenyon Jackson is going to be out there every snap. If you'd said, I'm very excited to hear what KJ is going to do this year, I'd say, well, get ready because he's going to play 60 snaps.
Well, I am excited to see that, but I am confident on that front.
I know you are. I think there's going to be games where CJ Hicks plays 15 snaps, and I think there's going to be games where CJ Hicks plays 45 snaps. What is it going to look like against Texas? I don't know. We're not going to get the game plan handed to us, but I think we can make reasonable guesses that if Texas decides that they want to try and throw the football with Arch Manning, then the solution will be to bring pressure. Who is one of the best players on Ohio State's roster athletically with an attacking mentality, disrupting in the backfield? It is CJ Hicks. So if that's the game that they want to play, then we're going to see him. If Texas decides that they need to have 2 tight ends on the field and they need to run the football in this game, then we probably will not. That's not a knock on him. That's just when we go back to the first question you asked about the defensive line. They have enough components. And as Nicole said, when you stir it up in the pot, you can pick and choose. They have the ingredients to do whatever they want. Matt Patricia doesn't have to draft here. He came in and everything was in the kitchen for him to do what he wants and what is best against Texas. So Texas, in some ways, will have an ability to dictate personnel, and Ohio State will match it. I don't think you want that to be the case in every game. As Dane said, if you're going to get more aggressive and go out and issue the terms to your opponent, then maybe you just say, hey, we're going to come after the passer on this play. What are you going to do about it? But from week to week, I don't know. And it's the same thing with Caleb Downs. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be playing a big nickel? Is he going to be in center field? That's all going to change from week to week. And that's the part where I'm most excited about this new regime with Matt Patricia, is that it's going to give us something new to see and talk about every single week.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll finish with this here. Concerns. This is it. This is our last chance to talk about our biggest concern with the defense going into Texas. And you can throw in offense, whatever your concern is. Mine kind of spans for both, and that is the word we talked about earlier, which is the clunkiness. I think inherently in a football game, in the first game of the year, it's things as simple, and I know this is funny, but you got to remember to bring your socks. It's the first game of the year. There are things that you're not in your routine yet. There are things that worry me. Now, bringing your socks up to 100 times different level. You've got to be in the right place. You've got to make sure that the way that Sonny is communicating with those guys on defense is perfect. This is also a new defense. This isn't even for Caleb Downs, for Sonny Styles, for Arvell Reese, for Kenyatta Jackson. This is not the same guy calling the shots that was back in January 20th against Notre Dame. The clunkiness, I think talent-wise, Ohio State wins this game. I just worry about the clunkiness. And now, the one thing that I get very frustrated when people don't talk about is Texas has the same problem.
Correct.
They don't have a different coordinator, but they got to deal with the same stuff. It's their first game, too. Nicole, I want the clunkiness to get out of the way, and then I think the Buckeyes' talent wins over. What's your biggest concern?
I don't like clunkiness either, but I'm going to go to the other side of the ball.
Dane, how do you feel about clunkiness?
Not a fan of clunkiness either.
Great.
I could do without it.
All right.
Okay,
Now-
great. I'm glad we're all on the
Agreed.
same page. I'm going to go to the other side of the ball, and it's a pretty obvious answer, but I think it's one that needs to be said. I just hope that this moment is not too big for Julian Sayin, because obviously, like we have said, Arch Manning, this is his first start in college football. This is Julian Sayin's first start. This moment is huge for both of these guys, but I'm just really hoping that he can keep his composure, remember what he knows how to do every day at practice, remember the kind of weapons he has in that receiver room, look to his running backs, look to his tight ends, just be confident out there. Cool, calm, and collected Julian Sayin, that's what I want to see. I don't want him to get rattled, and I know that's easy for me to stand here and say that, but I just hope that he keeps his composure and it's not too big for him.
Dane?
Concern would be, this isn't going to shock you, being too conservative. On both sides. And I say that, and this is in defense of that. I'm not saying you actually have to throw the bomb every time, which would be cool.
What was the noise you made earlier?
Yeah, well, so you don't have to do that every time. Okay. But I think at this level, too, and with having a young team, these still are college players. This is a college locker room. When you are coaching in a way that you are calling the plays that maybe are a little risky, you're showing confidence in your guys. So I think if you're looking at the Sunday after this game, you would much rather be in a spot where, hey, we took some shots, we went and did it, than having the murmurs around your locker room that why didn't we do anything? Yeah. Why didn't we go here? Why didn't we blitz? Because I've been in those locker rooms. That's a much worse place than losing aggressively. So I do think Ohio State has, I have a lot of confidence in them as a team in bringing that into it. But that's why I kind of advocate. The coaches aren't going to make silly like I would on NFL blitz decisions. Yeah. They're going to make smart ones, but you're showing your guys, hey, we're going. And that is so much, that lends huge throughout the whole season.
Real quick. How much do you think what happened last year gives Ryan Day and Brian Hartline a little bit of a safety blanket, if you will? Because I think it's hard to criticize somebody who just went out and cooked for 4 games and won a national title.
Cook,
you guys
baby.
did that at the same time. Won a national title. Do you think that gives them a little bit of the advantage in the locker room to say, just trust us?
I think a ton.
Okay.
I think 2 things on that. I think it gives you a ton of confidence going in. I think as a coaching staff, you're like, yeah, we've done this. What's the harm in doing it now? I think you can have a little bit of trust built in from your players, but also that tide felt like it shifted for this team when they started to do just that. When they went to the Tennessee game and said, all right, here we go. First drive. We're going to go try to win this thing and win it big. So I think like all those things work towards be that. Like go and do that, and even if you lose with that, it's defensible. And you don't lose your team. Because week one this is a really tough opponent to have week one. Both teams would say that. But even Texas would have this problem. That same locker room in Texas, they would much rather take shots. You don't want to be in a situation where you're the Sunday after and you play defensive and you're like, that's a bad precedent to set for the rest of the year, much less if you won or lost.
And if you're Texas, you're looking at your coach if things go wrong and say, this is 2 straight times, coach. What in the world? All right, your biggest concern.
Yeah, I don't really have a concern, Adam, because I know this
Well,
team
that's
is
good.
Yeah, that is great.
Nice.
I think that there's intrigue,
Okay.
but I think what is it going to look like, as I mentioned, with the schematics on defense? Not that concerned about that because Matt Patricia's got some rings that suggest he's pretty good at this and knows defensive football. I think the talent is there. The same is true on offense, but if you're going to go into this game with, as Nicole said, Julian Sayin making his starting debut and Dane wants to see a bunch of deep shots, you're going to have to protect the quarterback, and you need to have a run game that can complement that. Part of the struggle, I think, that CJ Stroud ran into at the start of 2021 was that there was not a reliable way to take the pressure off him. He had to be ready to throw for 480 yards in week 2 against Oregon. I don't think that that's a reasonable expectation for Julian Sayin in the first month of starting, nor is that reasonable in any way, shape, or form against a team as difficult and as physical as Texas. So when you look at the backfield, CJ Donaldson has Power 4 production. James Peoples has a year in the system. Both of those guys are at the top of the depth chart for Ohio State. I believe that they have the ability to run the football against Texas. I've said throughout this offseason, this is probably, almost certainly, the deepest offensive line that Ohio State has had in my 14 years covering this team. They haven't played a game collectively together as a 5-man front. Are they going to be able to win up front against Texas? Again, they have the same caliber of athletes. These are 2 of the most talented teams, bar none, in the country, and they are built in the trenches and then out from there. Ohio State has to win up front, and they're going to have to run the football consistently and successfully to take some of the load off of Julian Sayin to win this game. I think the defense is going to be lights out for Ohio State all year. I think that they're going to be number 1 statistically again, and I think that they're going to keep this thing manageable just the same way that the Cotton Bowl was. I don't think this is going to be a blowout game. I don't think this is going to be an explosive game. It is going to be a traditional knockdown, drag-out, who runs the football better and who dominates the line of scrimmage, and that's the mission for Ohio State.
I will say, I go back to the Tennessee game last year, and I made a comment on a roundtable where I said that I think that Ohio State is going to overpower Tennessee's defensive line. And everybody said, you are the dumbest person in the world.
Adam, you are so smart for saying
Thank you. That's what I wanted. I think that the most surprising part of what comes on Saturday is this Ohio State defensive line overpowering that Texas offensive line. And I think that's going to surprise a lot of people. And I've said this before with you guys. I think this defense, you're right. You said they'll be number 1. I think they may, by the end of the year, be better than last year's, which is saying something.
You can't be better than number 1, Adam.
Yeah.
You can. You can be
can't.
number 0.5.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
That feels worse, though. I know it's smaller, but it feels worse.
They are the best in the business here. We got Austin Ward. You can hear him on Austin and Berm every day. Snap Judgments, Talking Tuesday. What else you got over there? You got a million things going on.
Yeah. You know,
Right.
I don't know. We just talk.
Thursday? What do you do on Thursday?
3 things Thursday.
3 things Thursday.
Bold predictions on Friday.
Bold predictions on Friday.
Pre-game keys on Saturday. First one of the year, baby.
Pre-game keys, and then The Notebook, which people love.
That's a solid movie.
He is Dane
Great movie.
Sanzenbacher, former star Ohio State wide receiver. Coolest name in the business.
Thank you.
You hear him on 97.1 The Fan. She is Nicole Shearin. I could have
cook.
locked in that she was going to
Let me
I mean, there
cook.
was no doubt in my mind we were going to get that motion. I am Adam King. Thank you for watching. Keep it on 10 TV, 10 TV Plus, 97.1 The Fan all week long for your Buckeye versus Texas coverage as we lead up to the biggest opener in Ohio State history.